Hi, time for another episode of Simply Yoga with Deborah, and I'm here at the beach this morning. And I thought today for this morning we'd start out with a little lesson. And I want to start with a talking point or two, just to kind of give you an understanding of my sort of yoga philosophy. That years ago I was going through some business discussions about my life and my plans, and it really wasn't anyone else's business. But as I explained in the Thought Project yesterday, I went through a bunch of sort of trafficking, and so I was in a conversation with an older man that demanded I wear the bikini you saw in the first episode in every single show. I said, well, first of all, that's weird and looks kind of psychotic, right? You can't wear the same exact outfit in every single show. That's disgusting. And then, stuff gets dirty. It's just gross. And then, is it also, you don't pay for this show. I do my own shows. I worked for my contract with YouTube. I'm the one that had to go to Google when I was living in the DC area and talk to them about all this stuff. And I stood my ground. So here I am today in this not the exact same two piece as the last show, wearing, what's considered a more athletic type top. It is a swimsuit for doing yoga. And as I reflect on all this today, I also want to note that, I'm not wearing the butterfly necklace that I usually wear in honor of my mother's life today. And there's a reason for that. I just want to talk about kind of briefly. My mom's life, in a lot of ways, she made some sort of poor decisions, and one of them was that she simply allowed everyone and anyone who was an authority to tell her what to do. And so she ended up married 5 different times and failed marriages. And people said, why'd you do that? She said, well, she was just following directions. So what was her reward for following all those directions? Well, she was harmed. She ended up dead, and she was abused for years because she kept doing what people said. And so I learned from that, and that was also her generation, right? And so I learned from that to try to focus on doing something different. And I say that as I look through my bag this morning, because I was trying to see if I have another necklace to share with you. Instead, oh yes, here it is. I have my patriotic Hawaii style necklace. So that's what I'll be wearing for today's episode instead. And I note all this because I was also thinking of some of the philosophy I created when I looked at the life of Anna Nicole Smith. She was a model. She was the guest girl from the 90s that everyone loved and was really beautiful, and people compared her to a number of different famous performers. She was the real deal. She was actually a poor woman. She actually came from the trailer parks down south and made it as a model, and then was injured a number of times and developed a drug addiction. Eventually ended up married to an older man. She had a lot of money, and the family never really approved of her marriage to him, and then she ended up eventually dead, and people said it was from drug use. But of course, as you know, there were all these other events that sort of led up to that happening to her. And so it's kind of important to remember that she too made this decision to just constantly do what other people said. We don't really know the truth about her life. Maybe she would have been a great scientist or done something completely different. But instead, she ended up trying to be, she was the guest girl and she did some movies, and she was painted as being very stupid. And I know for a fact from when I went through an investigation that it was actually Buffalo Bill, the guy that nicknamed who set her up for all that. And so, it's sad. It's a sad story, but you have to think about it and say, well, whatever's going on, for you individually as an actual biological female in this world, you're going to have to make some choices, and you can't just simply do what everyone else says, because it's not their life, and they don't have to take the sort of hits and punches that go with it, and they don't have to take responsibility for it, and it doesn't affect their life. Unless, of course, it's someone who's very clearly trying to make money off of you, and then you have to think about that as well. So, my mother was never a practitioner of yoga or any of those methodologies or practices or philosophies. I don't follow the religion around it. I specifically do the exercises, and I stay very much away from the Ashtanga school of yoga and follow more like the Hatha and Vinyasa and Pranayama schools of thought. So, anyways, but I mean, it's kind of important when you look at Anna Nicole Smith's life. It's like, wow, this woman, she just went and did what people said, and she read Sold or Die, and then it's pretty obvious the family set her up to be killed and maybe even took her money actually. So, it's a thought process and everything. And that's why I did the Thought Project, just so you know, and then talk about how eventually we'll be moving on to more yoga postures. And the other shows, not every show will have sort of a yogi teaching in the beginning, but this is the sort of teaching for today. I'm going to start with some of the morning poses here. and just do some nice sort of forward movements here. This gets your lower back moving and opened up. And then as I get ready to go do some more yoga, I'm going to turn and go in the other direction, keeping that spine loosened up. And I'm going to go ahead and pull my hair back. Remember, if you want first access to my work and pictures and to talk with me more, I'm on OnlyFans at Deborah K, DeborahKay. And then we're going to do some child's pose. And then this morning, I'm going to talk to you about the warrior postures. We're going to start with warrior 1, which is, these are the most basic yoga postures. So you put your foot forward like this, back leg firmly planted behind you. And make sure your heel is nice and straight. And then keep your legs wide, especially if you're like me, you have wider hips. You want to keep both legs at an angle to your hips that actually support your body, and not one that would put you at risk of falling over. And what I mean is, if you try to do the pose more narrowly like this, you're going to have a harder time holding it. So you actually have to go wider in order to hold it. And then you come down, do the yoga plank, bring the other leg forward. And then in doing warrior 2, you're going to start in a warrior 1 posture and then turn and then go like this. Okay? And then you hold your stomach in as best you can. And then you're going to do it the other direction. And then we're going to come back down. And then for this one, I'm going to do plank for a second. And then I just want to show you another posture called airplane. And I am on the beach. So if you're doing this and you're beginning, airplane is a more advanced posture. It's warrior 3, also called airplane. And you want to make sure to really be prepared when you start to do it, because it's one of the harder postures, especially for beginners, because you're actually going to take your leg up and you're just going to balance. And then you come back down, go back, do another plank, bring your other leg forward. Remember, I'm doing this at a beach, not on a flat surface, so I don't recommend doing it at the beach, actually, unless you're more advanced. Sorry. And that is the end of my warrior series for you today. And then after you do a series, if you feel like you need to center again, you simply come down, put your hands on your knees just like this, and look forward and breathe. And look off into the distance. I'll show you just like this. And that's all you need to do. And it's actually a posture you can do just about anywhere. I mean, obviously you can't go out in public all over the place and, sit on your knees, but you can do this at home. You can do this, in a private moment, in your office at work, or, wherever. Kind of work on some shoulder shrugs. As I showed you before, this is a very common pose. It comes from the warrior postures on the top that you can do. Stretches at your back. And then I'm going to come into the sort of seated, cross-legged pose here, traditional yogi pose. And I'm going to show you something else today, which is the this is a hand stretching posture, which you can actually do standing. People often do it in a warrior pose, but I'm going to show it to you today like this. You take your hands, put them behind your back, and have them touch. And when you start, they probably won't. You'll just learn to reach for them. You'll eventually do it on your own, and you just breathe. And then you go like that with your arms. And then same thing on the other side. And then I'm going to show you what this looks like for the back because I am more advanced at it. Oh, and that was this episode of Yoga, Simply Yoga with Deborah today. I hope you've enjoyed this show. I certainly enjoyed seeing all of you. And, it's a gorgeous day here at the beach, and I hope wherever you're at, you're having a lovely day as well. Thank you.